Today, on Wednesday, June 4th, I'd like to spend a little bit of time starting to go over the dwarf tomatoes individually and making some comments on them. So let's start excuse me, with the varieties that we planted first in the white grow bags. And starting with this first variety, which is called Sweet Scarlet Dwarf. A very healthy potato leaf dwarf. And looking in here to see, this is going to be a bit of a later variety. It's just starting to show some blossoms at the tip. Second one here is Rosella Crimson. Regular leaf foliage, nice rugose growth and healthy. You can see a very large flower cluster right around the top there. And if we look inside, it should be starting to set fruit very soon. This plant is about the same height as Sweet Scarlet Dwarf. The plant next to it is a released variety, Dwarf Sweet Sue. You can see where it has the characteristic taller growth of the sneezy line. It's a very nice potato leaf dwarf. And there is the blossom cluster initially never developed quite well, but you can see that it has some open flowers near the top. But relatively speaking, that plant is about maybe 6 or 8 inches taller than Rosella Crimson. The Sweet Scarlet is a little bit taller than Rosella Crimson, so the tipsy line tends to be on the tall side. The sleepy line is a little shorter, and the sneezy side line is taller. The next one that we've got here, Adelaide Festival. This is from our Tidy line. Beautiful looking plant, and we have a nice cluster of flowers. Should be setting fruit any day now. Next we have a Rosella Purple, and this is the plant that I actually set out about 3 weeks in advance of the others during picture taking. That's why it's in a black grow bag. I wanted to show both types. This is one of our released varieties. Numerous flower clusters. It's actually got 2 flower clusters open now. Should be setting fruit any day. Next we come to one of our release varieties that I think we've successfully reselected. This is Summertime Gold. The flowers are just about to open. Again, this is one of the sneezy line, so it tends to be a little bit on the taller side, although it's not as tall as Sweet Sue. And next we come to Dwarf Kelly Green. The reason this is relatively short is it got a much later start. But the plant looks beautiful, and it's just showing some flower buds that are about to open. Let's move on to Perth Pride, and this is in the Happy line. Nice compact dwarf growth. Not as tall as the Sleepy line, and some nice open flowers. Now I'd be willing to bet that's going to set fruit any day. If it's tall and if it's slender, then it must be from the sneezy line, and this Dwarf Emerald Giant was also planted at the same time as Rosella Purple. And look at those nice big flowers that it's shooting right out the top. Should be setting fruit any day. That should be pretty large fruited. That's one of our released sneezies. Next is another of the sneezies, and this is Jade Beauty. One of the things I've noticed in Jade Beauty when compared to Beryl Beauty is there is more puckering. The foliage on Jade Beauty is more rugose. It's a beautiful potato leaf dwarf, and we've got a nice cluster of open flowers in there. This is looking tall. Yeah, it's another sneezy. This is Dwarf Mr. Snow, and we have open flowers, at least 2 clusters right now, and you can tell that the fruit will be good sized. Mr. Snow is looking fine. And now we're moving on to Dwarf Wild Fred. This is from the sleazy A line. It's still a pretty tall dwarf. Definitely it's not as tall as the sneezies. This plant is looking great. It's a regular leaf dwarf, and got a nice cluster of blossoms in there that should be setting fruit any day. Look at the size of the potato leaf on this dwarf. This is another one of the sneezies that's released called Summer Sunrise. Pretty similar to Summertime Gold, although we find the fruit color a little bit deeper, the interior structure a little bit different. Beautiful blossom cluster right in the top that's about to open. Next we come to Summertime Green, and another one of the released sneezies, and one of my favorites actually. And no flowers down below, but a nice set of blossoms forming at top. And now we come on to Dwarf Beryl Beauty, and this one is less rugose looking than Jade Beauty. It's still a very nice compact potato leaf dwarf. Got a later start than the others, and there's blossoms just forming. And we're turning the corner now, and this is one of my favorite dwarfs that's in development, Blazing Beauty from the Tipsy line. It's a potato leaf dwarf, and it's just starting to show some buds forming. And now we're moving on to, there's a few of the grumpies in this row, and I'll show you how advanced they are, relatively speaking. This is Arctic Rose, developed by our Alaskan project contributors, and you can see there's a open blossom right out the top. But if you look in here, there's a cluster of blossoms right in there. Should be any day for fruit set. Next to that is Werricohi, named by a grower in New Zealand named Richard. This is a variety that we hope to release soon. It's from the Dizzy line, and there's some pretty soon just about to open flowers in there. It's a little bit of a later dwarf. Now we get into another one that we hope is about ready, called Sweet Adelaide from the Happy line. This plant is not quite as advanced as the others. It got a later start, and there's blossoms just starting to form around the top. Now this is interesting. This is Iditarod Red. It's from the Grumpy line, but the foliage on this, like some of the Grumpies, tends to be, I wouldn't say puckered, but it has almost an outward curl, even though this plant is perfectly healthy, and I've noticed this in the past. This is going to be one of the earlier ones. You can see that we have open blossom clusters in there and more flowers coming on the top. Next we have Tasmanian Chocolate out of the Happy line. This will have the color of Cherokee chocolate. Blossoms are just forming, and will be a little bit later. Plant looks great. And now we have Sleeping Lady, another one of the released Grumpy line that our Alaskan friends helped develop. Should be on the early side, and as you can see, we've got lots of blossoms forming and opening in several different places. This should be, and it is, Yukon Quest, which is another one of the Grumpies that show almost a curled foliage aspect. Quite compact, more compact than Arctic Rose perhaps, although we'll do a comparison this year. See some nice open blossoms there. And finally we have Tennessee Suited, which we're going to compare to Adelaide Festival. This is from the Tidy line. We've got a nice open flower cluster in there. Plant looks fantastic.